All right, let's get into our first discussion now. In 2012, floods killed 363 people, injured many people, and displaced more than 3 million others in Nigeria.
In all, about 7.7 million people were affected between July and October of that year. That's according to figures from the National Emergency Management Agency. At least 30 states were affected by the floods. That was the worst flood in 40 years, with an estimated loss of about 2.6 trillion naira.
Yeah. Now, the rainy season is here again, and as expected, many states in Nigeria will experience seasonal flooding. Now, the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency has advised residents living in flood-prone areas to take proactive steps by relocating to safe areas in order to prevent the loss of lives and property.
According to the agency's 2017 flood outlook, 26 states across the Federation and 96 local government areas are expected to experience high-risk flooding in the next few months. 231 local government areas from other states fall under the moderate flood risk areas, and some of the states that are likely to experience high-risk flooding include Niger, Sokoto, Zamfara, Gombe, Lagos, Delta, Yobe, Kano, Imo, Bayelsa, Kebbi, Nasarawa, Taraba, among others.
There will also be flooding in 8 major rivers across the country: River Niger, River Benue, Sokoto Rima River, Anambra Imo Cross River, Niger Delta, Kamodugu, that's in Yobe State, Ogun Osun, and other sub-basins of the country. Now, coastal flooding is expected in Bayelsa, in Rivers, in Delta, in Ondo, and Lagos.
While flash and urban flooding are expected in Ibadan, Lagos, Kaduna, Yola, Maiduguri, Hadija, Makurdi, and others. The agency says the number of people vulnerable to devastating flood is expected to continue to rise due to large-scale urbanization, population growth in flood-prone areas, deforestation, climate change, and rising sea levels.
All right, that's the background to what we're talking about, or what we're going to talk about right now. Joining us here in the studio, we have Public Affairs Alistair, Alistair Wilcox. Alistair, it's good to have you join us.
Thank you.
Good morning.
It's nice to
And
be
he's
here.
even wearing the badge so we can see. His name is Alistair. Right hand.
And we have joining us on Skype Nemo Bassi. He's an environmental activist and former president, Friends of the Earth International. And he's joining us from Cameroon. Nemo Bassi, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, and it's raining cats and dogs here.
Wow, it's the season, I'm telling you. Now, let me start with you, Nemo Bassi. First of all, how do you know, because there is a warning that has gone out now for those who live in flood-prone areas to leave, relocate to, but people who live, how do you know you live in flood-prone areas?
Well, one way to know is that you might have experienced flooding before, so you know your area is prone to flooding. And then those who are living close to rivers or wetlands, they should just know that that is a real possibility. But then, from the coastline of Nigeria up to about maybe 80 kilometers inland, the land is virtually flat and very close to sea level. So the whole area, many of our cities are just prone to flooding because of the geography or the terrain that we live in. And so nobody should feel that they're safe in this kind of situation.
A jiffy, and we'll go out on entertainment. But viewers there can continue with TVC Breakfast on TVC Nigeria DSTV, channel 418, Go TV 45, Free TV, it is still 701. All
right, you can still continue the program on StarSat channel 270 if you're in Southern Africa, and Star Times channel 307 if you're in Western Africa. Stay with us right now. All right, thank you for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. We're discussing the warning alert gone out to Nigerians who live in flood-prone areas to relocate because 2017, there's going to be a lot of flooding in many areas. And we have with us in the studio Lester Wilcox, and we also have joining us on Skype from Cameroon, Reverend Nemo Bassi. All right, Lester, let me come to you on this. When it comes to warnings, this is not the first time. In fact, Nigerians are used to it now. After the great flooding of 2012, I think so, yeah. Nigerians are used to these warnings every year. Yeah. But it seems nothing really happens after the warnings.
Yeah, after the reggae comes the blues, but in Nigeria, it's always reggae. You know, we have developed this skin on a lot of things. My brother, if you are driving, put your horn on somebody who is walking and see if he listens to you. He just keep walking along. You'll be hitting your horn at
because he's used to horns.
So that's where I'm going. You know, we're used to these things. I mean, year in, year out, and we're like nothing. I mean, after all, we survived it last year. We survived it this year. We're going to survive it. But you know, that does not show that we are intelligent people that should be advancing in as they did. Now, check all this flood alert. Is this the same year in, year out? And in those areas where you have these problems, nothing, after the flood, nothing is done to alleviate or to ameliorate, to make sure that, okay, if this year we're having it in this area, okay, we've solved some of the, because these are problems, this problem can be solved. They are not cast in stone. They are not. Yeah. They are not naturally there permanently. They can be solved. That is why every day government should involve policies, involve situations, involve actions that will solve this problem. But unfortunately, it is just rectories. We have the ecological fund that is subject of the most serious abuse in this country. The most serious fraud occurs with that ecological fund. Because nobody puts their eye on that, on that area. States, local governments, federal government, they collect, they share that because it's a percentage of the FEC that is reserved for ecology, and at every interval it is shared to handle situations like this. But you discover that because nobody presses his eyes into that area, nobody bothers. Everyone is how they pay salary. If they pay salary or not. Nobody knows what is about the other aspect of it.
Okay.
So the money
we'll come back to that. Nemo, let's take this now to you, talking about familiarity in terms of alert. These are just forecasts, right? So some years that they make forecasts and it is not floody, what goes wrong?
Well, so there are times that predictions may not be very precise, and we have to just take that in. Again, there are times that we have these alerts, and then because people don't really have alternatives, as my colleague just mentioned, there's no sufficient disaster preparedness by disaster management agencies, emergency management agencies, then we have this kind of situation. But, you know, in this year's prediction, I think people need to really be very serious about it, because we have records and reports of flooding in many West African countries. And these are countries where River Niger passes through. So if the River Niger gets flooded upstream, certainly can be sure the water is going to find its way to the Atlantic Ocean, and that means passing through a large part of Nigeria. So we don't need to, whenever we have the alert, we have to believe that something is going to happen and prepare for it. If it doesn't happen, well, good enough, but we have to be ready when it happens. Okay,
last year, the UN actually sat on a theme using a local method to determine how the weather will behave in terms of flooding area and all that. Even before the technology, we used to know how to predict, make some prediction. Why are we not incorporating that into the technology we have to have some kind of precise predictions?
Well, you're right. We have local knowledge, indigenous knowledge, and even local technology for predicting weather conditions. But we have to also agree that the weather patterns are changing in a way that cannot readily be predicted, and it's going to get worse as years go by because of global warming. The Sahara Desert is getting increasingly hotter, and as it gets hotter, the weather events in the Sahel region, which is where much of the River Niger goes through, is changing dramatically, unpredictably. And there are also some experimentations going on in the atmosphere by advanced countries through geoengineering. And all the models we've seen, they place us at disadvantage. Whether it's being modified to suit certain conditions in some countries, some regions, and all the negative impacts are on us. So we need to wake up really to be more serious about international negotiations, about what's going on, and then to also understand the unpredictability of the situation while utilizing all the resources, local and international, at our disposal.
Okay, Alistair, let me come to you on that. We're seeing a visual now,
Yes.
somewhere that's supposed to be a road.
Yeah.
There's a
Submerged.
canoe. There's a canoe there. Someone is paddling a canoe on a supposed road.
Yes.
But let's bring it down to the people themselves.
Yes.
Besides what the government is supposed to help the people do in a situation like this, how easy, based on socioeconomic factors, when someone lives or someone is aware that I live in a flood-prone area, how easy it is for him to leave?
Yeah, it depends on the person and the economic circumstances of that individual. Now, let me give you a typical example. Lekki is perpetually under flood. A 10-minute rain in Lekki, the entire place is flooded. Lekki is a highbrow area. They keep constructing and developing personal facilities like the houses and other things, and leaving the environment. If you see the gutters that they have, the
a lot of them very
shallow, small gutters. But it discovered that in that place, buildings worth millions, hundreds of millions of naira are built, and this has. In fact, I've started being around Lekki since 2005, 2006, and that has been the issue till today. Now, nobody is thinking, how do we solve it? Highbrow area. Now, so as far as they are concerned, their enclave is safe. The road and the infrastructure can go to hell, and that is just the attitude. Now, when people are saying move, you are living in let me just say Ajegule. Anyway, Ajegule is no longer flooded these days, but you are living in such an area, in some of those slums. You say move to where? Now, government do not have, and that's why I said the ecological fund is not only meant to. These are emergency funds that are supposed to provide emergency architecture. In terms of houses, in terms of hotels and all. No, look at what's happening in the UK. Fire testing on high-rise buildings. And the local council is evacuating people and paying for their movement. Now, over the year, because this fund did not just come one day, they had made projections and advances and savings and budget for this, and they have stored them. So in a time of emergency, they do not have issues with funding. Now, in our own case, we've provided for these funds over the years, and these funds and everybody keeps people from, it is just like rectories. People from low region area should move to where? You have been managing a roof over your head. You have been managing this over your head.
All of a sudden,
you just say move. Move to where? Your brother that you're moving to is...
And who will be responsible for the
movement? So that is the social... That is why I said we are just... we're just denying ourselves good life. Deliberately or inadvertently. We deny ourselves the good life. On how nations should run, on how sensible people should run. And okay, even those who are building. Now, if you go along Ikorodu, let me just take Lagos again. If you go along Ikorodu before now, you know what happened along that Ikorodu Axis? There was a time up to Agbowa, the place was completely emerged. Now, you see people, you see the river, you still build your facility there. And when they said this place is bad, you say, God is the one that is saving us now. I mean, we've been here all our lives. And then you just keep on your own. You think because you are poor, you cannot do anything. But again, the cost of ignorance is higher than that of education. If you're educated and you do the right thing at the right time, you discover that the cost is lower. Now, when you are there and your facilities are destroyed, lives are lost, what can you quantify that cost? You now start afresh. The more you think you didn't have to do the right thing at the first time, you still need to provide it because you will not kill yourself. Because
let's talk about the apart from the social impact of the economical impact of this. We are trying to diversify. That's the song the Nigerian government is singing. Yes. And this is happening now. And some of those flood-prone areas are areas that we cultivate and we get our goods from. So
Yes.
tell us how the government should have prepared for this in case we have flooding in those areas.
Number one, thank you for that. Number one, I think even part of the problem today is urbanization, crass urbanization. And I think, let me take Lekki for example. When Lekki was developed, the basic infrastructures were not properly, adequately put in place. Now, it's only in Nigeria.
The foundation.
Yes, it's only in Nigeria that a new place is open. People start building before they start thinking of drainages and all that thing. Already you've stocked the place with all kinds of things. It's even now that they're building some roads that in Lekki, something. So now, taking it back to most of the lands now, development is not being controlled. Most of the arable lands, let's say within the southwest, that's this Mowe, axis and all those people. Most of the arable lands that used to be farming lands have all been hijacked for housing development. Now, what are the plans that was done initially? Nothing. Just because there is the in thing, everybody wants to build house, land speculators are cashing in on the people, they're buying up the whole places. So no proper planning. Government is not controlling that because so long as government gets revenue from those, they don't care. So right now, that kind of urbanization, that kind of development is now affecting the entire ecosystem, affecting the land that is to be used for agriculture. So there is no way, water will always find its level because water always moves, it will always find its level. So long as you keep developing houses at area where farms are used to be before now, the farms could have been sucking up the water, using them for that, but now the houses cannot suck those waters, and so it becomes an issue. So I think for me, we need to be much assassination. At all sphere, local government, state government, we need to be much assassination. That we don't need to just be this rush people. We want to do something, everybody just rush into one thing. There must be controls, there must be rules, there must be regulations, and strictly enforced, so that we do the right things at the right time, and then avoid the bigger problems that will emerge in future.
Okay, let's bring Reverend Nimo Bassi in here now. There's a call to relocate already. I asked a question earlier in here to Alesta. How easy would it be for people who live in flood-prone areas to relocate? Now, in practical terms, what are the options left for people living in places like that for themselves and even for the governments that those people fall under their jurisdiction?
Well, I think the challenge it really is the social and economic conditions of the people who live in flood-prone areas. Moving cannot be easy, especially when you have to move in a situation where you are not really prepared for it. So again, we come to the issue of emergency preparedness. This is where governments at every level, local, state, federal, have to invest seriously for the security of lives of our people due to incidents like flooding that we cannot really avoid at all times. Now, there are also other things that we can do. As was mentioned, the so-called reclamation of land, which is actually grabbing from the sea, is contributing a lot to the flooding problems we're having. Because when you reduce the wetlands, you are reducing the area that can absorb the excess water that comes when we have unusual rainfall. So moving is difficult. Moving would not really solve the problem permanently. It's just a situation that something that people can do occasionally when there's no other option.
Okay, we are going out now, and my producer will probably kill me for this, but let me just throw in this question, please. Tell us what we do on a daily basis that affects flooding, our environmental attitude to hygiene. Please quickly touch on that.
Okay, number one, I would say is that our people are very careless about the way that we handle trash. You find plastic bags everywhere. This has been dumped in gutters all over our city. The whole place is filled with plastics, and all these block the drainages. And so when we have flooding, we have a heavy downpour, this compounds the problem that we have. And then also we are paving everywhere. People are paving their compound. We like paved roads, but we have to ensure that we have a good balance of green areas, both within our compounds where we live and also in our neighborhoods. These are the things that we can do individually, what governments can do, and also be conscious about how we handle our trash, blocking drains, blocking streets. All these compound the problems that we have.
All right, Nimo Bassi, environmentalist and former president, Friends of the Earth International. Thank you for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.
A pleasure.
Right, and Alistair Wilcox, thank you very much for coming as well.
It's always my pleasure.
Thank
you.
very much.
Right.
Good morning.